Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Book Binge for yet again another absolutely absurd book haul video. This time with a little bit more going on physically, but yet again, and just unbelievable amount going on with the ebook side of things, which we'll obviously get to in time. But if you see the timestamps down below or in the description, yeah, you probably know what's happening. So this is going to be yet another ginormous video, and is the reason why I'm actually going to return to monthly book hauls now, just because I'm going to continue to collect a bunch of digital books on sale all of the time. It doesn't make any sense to do one of these gigantic videos every 3 months. Like I said, without any further ado, let's just get into the haul again. No time for dilly-dally. Let's start off just as I normally do with the physical books, but this time starting off with a gift rather than just jumping right into what else has occurred. This first gift is a little handmade product made by a friend of mine who runs it's not really a business, but has his own like little self-binding book binding thing that he does as a hobby, Saint Bindings. This is a special edition that he made, crafted for Christopher Rocchio himself of the Fangs of Awanos, and then made a few other copies for a few friends, including me, of course. So there's this, the shell case that he made for it, but there's also the actual book bound itself, The Fangs of Awanos short story. Like I said, it's just a little something he did because he could. Nothing profited out of this. Just self-produced and hand binded himself a few copies of this to give away to a few friends. Really great copy, really great edition. Feels really great to be able to have this. It's one of only 6 versions out available. In fact, they're not available, they are private editions. So I'm very grateful to Classy Wagon for having produced these. That is the very first item in the book haul. Definitely a lot to live up to with that one, and nothing else in the haul quite lives up to it. But the next thing that does almost live up to it is, however, a little set of 5 books here, also Sun Eater related. You can actually see a little bit of spoiler going on here up in the top. You can see on my shelf there what looks like a Cyrillic alphabet on the cover of Demon in White. That's because all of the oh man, what do you call them? The dust jackets of these books are up on the shelf there. I, for absolutely no reason at all other than impulse, did a purchase of the Russian editions of Sun Eater, primarily for the covers, actually, not just because, I'm learning Russian and maybe one day I'd be able to read from these editions, definitely not any day soon, but because these editions themselves come with naked hardcovers that feature the art that are just fantastic. The quality of the dust jackets is also superb. Like, the degree to which I'm happy for purchasing these just for the quality of the naked hardcovers and the dust jackets alone is absolutely absurd to me. It's really crazy. I can't read the text, obviously, because it's in Russian, but man, I would someday like to be able to read it because they're just beautiful. These are absolutely beautiful editions, and I'm spent way too much money on them, quite frankly, but like, can you deny how cool it is to be able to have these in a hardcover format with just the naked hardcovers, no text on them, just on the spine, but like the front covers, just the artwork? Incredible. These things look amazing. I love them so much, and definitely one of the prides and joys of my book collection, just like I said, for the quality of the hardcovers alone. So that is that. Next up in the physical collection is another set of items, 4 books this time, that actually also come pretty close to matching the quality of some of that stuff. This is the broken binding version of the Dandelion Dynasty, which you can see as the great spine, or not even spine, whatever you call them, sprayed edges, art that looks incredible. The front covers also match and line up with each other and look incredible. This is a series that I've been wanting to pick up in one form or another for quite a while now at this point. It's been a hot minute, but because of the editions, the US hardcovers initially not matching for a long time, especially on the spine, aggravating the heck out of me, I never actually made it a point to finally buy them, even after they supposedly fixed them. I just didn't feel comfortable attempting. I was, still skeptical. And also because I also always wanted to collect this series with the UK art, which is what this is. When the Broken Binding decided to do a reprint of the special editions, but with purple versions of the art, purple being my favorite color, I was like, you know what, that's worth. So I went ahead and did just that. So that is the collection here. Just, Dandelion Dynasty, gonna go on the shelf. I don't know how I'm gonna display it quite yet. In fact, I don't even really have that many shelves in my office here available with space anymore. I did for a little while, but most of it's taken up at this point. So I still have to figure out where it's actually going to go. And now for a little bit more of the standard fare when it comes to physical book collecting. Let's move on to the rest of the physical books. The very first item we're going to talk about is yet another new release. Released just a couple weeks after The Failures by Ben Lyre, which is one of my favorite books of the year, and for which you'll see an interview with the author next week for that with Benjamin Lyre. This was one that I also read similar to The Failures. I read this as a read along with the Red Company, the Sun Eater fan Discord. It didn't go over quite as hot as The Failures did, but I still enjoyed my time with it overall. There's a lot of great ideas in the West Passage. So, as a proof of concept, I think this is definitely a pretty good outing, especially for another debut novel. There's, like I said, a lot of great ideas. If you want to know more about how I felt about the book, I do have a review for that coming at some point in the relatively near future, if I'm not mistaken. 2 weeks, so the week after the interview with Benjamin Lyre, my review of that will be going up. The next book is The Land of the Living and the Dead, the third book in the jail song. I'm not 100% sure which one of those is the pronunciation because it's Irish. I believe it's Jail Song trilogy by Shauna Lawless, a series that I'm actually really looking forward to getting to, preferably sooner than later, but I know that that's been on the backlog ever since basically the first book came out and I heard about it. It just seems like something that would absolutely be up my alley just conceptually, so that's one that I'm looking forward to giving a shot. Next up is Canonical for Leibowitz. Good grief, I'm sorry, I'm smashing the mic with the books here. 2 copies of this one for a funny reason. Was looking to grab a copy of this, especially with this cover, because I wanted to have this cover. Orion, the owner of the Sun Eater fan Discord, actually sent me a link so that I could purchase this, the mass market, because it's kind of hard to get the book with this cover now, and I was like, okay, cool, so I grabbed it. But then I met up with another friend from the same Discord, Doombot, who brought this along. He happened to find this and decided to bring it to give me just the copy for free when we met up, like a week or something after I bought that copy. So I'm actually probably going to send this copy to somebody. It may or may not be something that I decide to buddy read with a group of people, and if so, there's the chance that I'll gift the extra copy to somebody else. I'm definitely going to be gifting it to somebody because yeah, I don't need both the hardcover and the mass market of this book. So that's something that was pretty funny. Next up is Haruki Murakami's Kafka on the Shore, another one of the Murakami books that I'm looking to give a shot a little bit sooner than later. It's an author that is one of Reen's favorites, one that I'm definitely keen on giving a try here in the nearish future. I think Kafka on the Shore is one of his most well-received ones overall, so it's one that I'm interested in giving a shot pretty soon as a result of that. Next up is Serpent Daughter, the 4th book in the Witchy War series. And this one was actually one that I bought at Barnes & Noble along with Doom when we went and saw that when we met up and we're doing a couple things. This one is a signed copy of the book that I got there, so that's pretty neat. I could have also gotten the first book signed as well from the same Barnes & Noble, but because I already have a physical copy of it, I was like, I'm not going to do that. But then I realized after the fact that I could have just done that and then gifted the copy that I already have to somebody else and then just had both of these signed. That would have been pretty cool, but who knows what goes on in my brain sometimes. Sometimes I'm pretty inconsistent. I did start reading Witchy Eye pretty recently because that is also another read-along happening in the Red Company, and I'm enjoying it immensely so far. So I hope to be able to continue on. Maybe if one of these days the 2nd and 3rd book in the series ever get a trade paperback release, that would be something cool. Also bought at the same Barnes & Noble alongside Serpent Daughter, I got a physical copy of The Spear Cuts Through Water, which is technically a duplicate of a book that I got digitally, I think in the last book haul. But when I talked about that book in whichever haul it was that I talked about it, I was like, this is one of those books that I would and absolutely should buy physically just for the cover. It is definitely one of those covers that is just beautiful. It is amazing. So when I saw it in the Barnes & Noble, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and buy a physical copy of that because this cover is just too good to pass up. It just looks way too cool, man. Cooler than it has any right to, quite frankly. But now for a little bit more of a flash to the past, so to speak, not necessarily, but somewhere along those lines, we go to a few items from Rick Riordan. The first one of these being Daughter of the Deep, which I understand is being a sort of inspired by 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea spiritual successor sequel type of thing that Riordan was doing with this one. I'm not 100% sure I understand fully the concept of it, but it is one that I've kind of had like in the back burner, like will I or won't I try that type of thing at some point in the future. Pretty recently I discovered that on Amazon this hardcover version of it goes for like $6 now. I guess sales on it is probably pretty awful. I would guess that is definitely seems to be the impression. Whether that is a fact or not, I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I decided to pick it up. I was like, yeah, $6 for a hardcover is not a bad deal at all, so I went ahead and did that. But the other two Riordan books that I picked up were physical versions of Percy Jackson's Greek Gods and Greek Heroes. I originally was looking to see if I could actually get like the ginormous hardcover versions, because I wanted to be able to have those in my collection, but it turns out that like getting that for Greek Heroes is like pretty difficult to do online. So I was like, I'm not even going to bother. I'll just get the paperback versions. They still have art inserts in the middle of them. Not quite as much as I was kind of hoping and expecting for there to be, but I figure, why not? If I'm going to read a bunch of Riordan stuff, I might as well actually read those too, because they canonically exist within the universe. They're not just supplemental material. So I figured it would be worth picking up for that. And then another little series, a trilogy that is also kind of it's not similar to Jail Song by Shauna Lawless, but in the same vein as that, for me, it piqued my interest because it seems to be like a sort of retelling utilization of Indian mythology, so the Kalki trilogy. I'm not even going to pronounce a couple of these, titles in here, book 1 or book 2 or even book 3. I'm not going to do it, but the trilogy seems to be a retelling inspired by Indian mythology type of thing, where the main characters are all various different Indian gods. I don't know exactly how they are utilized in the story, but it's one that I'm interested in checking out, just like I said, because of the concept. I was like, you know what? Why not? It popped up in my Amazon recommended and kept recurring very many times. I was like, you know what? That would be something that would be cool to give a shot at some point in the future. So that is exactly what I did. Next couple of things aren't technically books, but they are manga. So I will go ahead and show them off as sets. The first one of these sets is Good Night Poon Poon, which is, again, one of Reen's favorite mangas, and one that I was actually going to probably start here in the final quarter of the year at some point, and then decided not to because of emotional reasons. We shall say this is apparently a very emotionally devastating, heavy series, and I was like, I'm not really in the mood for that quite so much right now, so I decided not to start it, but I did pick it up and it is ready to start basically at any point. So that is definitely something. Basically everybody who's read it recommends it, says it is very good, so I am definitely very keen on trying that pretty soon. And talking about Goodnight Poon Poon brings me actually quite smoothly into the next item in the haul, which is Monster Perfect Edition. Oh man, another manga. This one a little bit thicker, a little bit longer, therefore a little bit heavier and more difficult to pick up. This is one that I started instead of starting Goodnight Poon Poon, and it has been fantastic so far. In fact, I have a bookmark a little over halfway through volume 2 here. It's been great. This is one that I've heard basically nothing but good things about from basically everybody who's ever touched it. So it's one that I've had my eye on kind of like tangentially for a little while now, but especially when Reen read it recently. And I think he might have rated it a 10 out of 10, like just perfect manga. I was like, okay, yeah, I will definitely give that a shot, especially since it's a recommendation not just of him, but of basically everybody else who's read it. So I was like, yeah, I'm willing to give that a shot. So obviously I did. And that is the end of the physical portion of today's book haul. I'm going to go ahead and put these in various different spots on the shelves and return back very soon. And so now we move on to the various portions of the ebook collection sides of things, but don't worry, I'm not going to try to show you everything on the Kindle. I'm going to switch myself over to my desktop, where I'll actually be hiding basically all of the items here on this screen until I need to show them in their various respective folders. And all the folders over here from 1 through 12 are the different categories we're going to be covering through the rest of the ebook portion of the video. So first off, we have part 1, the assorted authors section, where I am uncovering a bunch of things that in the Kindle app look like documents. That is because it is a collection of like 11 or something like that books by Jeff Vandermeer that was in a Humble Bundle a few months back. It was probably right around 3 months ago. So you have a bunch of different stuff in here. I'm not gonna even bother really looking for it all specifically. I just have a list. You know, you have Drayden in Love, and the Hogbotton Guide to the Early History of Ambergris by Duncan Shriek, which is a mouthful of a title. These two are collected. You have City of Saints and Madman, or Madmen rather, which is a collection. You have Shriek in Afterward, The Strange Bird, Venice Underground, Finch over here. Then you have obviously the Southern Reach trilogy right down here. These two books plus wherever the first one is at, somewhere. It should be somewhere in this list. It is apparently not. Apparently the reason why it was not in the list was because I have it accidentally. Is because I have the author accidentally named wrong when I sent it to myself as Vandermeer instead of Vandermeer, so that's why it didn't pop up. There's the first Southern Reach book, and then there's a few other books with Born and Dead Astronauts and Hummingbird Salamander. I know basically nothing about Vandermeer except for the Southern Reach trilogy being relatively popular, so there is that. I don't know anything else about the author. It was just, you know, being a Humble Bundle. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So I picked all of those up. Next up in the assorted authors is Ray Bradbury. I did pick up Dandelion Wine here and Farewell Summer here, which make up the other two books and basically the Greentown trilogy alongside Something Wicked This Way Comes. So those are there. And then there's a few standalones as well, between Death is a Lonely Business, From the Dust Returned, and The Illustrated Man, and then A Graveyard for Lunatics, which has a subtitle, Another Tale of Two Cities. So that intrigues me, but there's various Ray Bradbury in there. You also have a few Stephen Graham Jones items in here, between a few Tor.com original novellas, you know, very short items like Chapter 6, Men, Women, and Chainsaws, The Night Cyclist, and Wait for Night. I picked up a few more of these because they're only like 99 cents a piece, so I didn't feel that was anything you know, too much to ask for. I also picked up Mongrels, which is one of his more popular books. I was like, okay, might as well do that when that was on sale. And then similar thing with I Was a Teenage Slasher when that was on sale, because it's a pretty new book from him, I believe, and the standard price for that is absolutely absurd actually for an ebook. So I was like, yeah, sure, we'll do that. I enjoyed Stephen Graham Jones overall, the few stories that I read around a year ago at this point, and I figured, yeah, reading a few more of him, especially some of the shorter stories, is something that I definitely wanted to do. Up next is Guy Gavrielke, which you see right down underneath here, with All the Seas of the World, which is apparently the third book in a trilogy, question mark. The Last Light of the Sun, A Song for Arbon, and then Isabel, I'm assuming is how it's pronounced, which I believe is connected or tied to one of his other series or books somewhere. I don't remember off the top of my head, but whenever one of Kay's books goes on sale, I just decide to grab it. Did a similar thing not too long ago with C.S. Lewis. I did grab the Screwtape Letters, Mere Christianity, and Till We Have Faces by him. I believe Most of these are like sort of along the more Christian fiction or even like essays or something like that. I'm not 100% sure the concept of Till We Have Faces or Mere Christianity. I know what the Screw Tape Letters is. Picked these up when they were on sale as well because it was easy pickings. Next up are a couple random items from an author who I didn't know existed before a couple books were posted on sale in the server that I'm in, Chesapeake and Texas, which are both very chonky books. And when they were going for like 99 cents or $2 a piece, I was like, yeah, actually, I'll absolutely spend $2 to get a 1,500 page book or something like that. So that's what I've been doing with a couple of these books. Apparently, they're historical fiction books. They're based on certain times or stuff like that. Don't really know exactly what they're about, but they seem interesting enough to give a shot. And if they're good, then that will be very well worth the money that was spent on them. Next up is a couple Susanna Clarke books, basically the most popular of them. The two books that I know are by her, being Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which is a very long book, much longer than I thought it was, and then Piranesi, which both of these I'm keen on giving a shot at one point or another. Piranesi because it is very popular, and Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell because I see it mentioned in quite a few places. It seems like it'd be interesting. And then finally, we also have a couple books by Vladimir Nabokov. I picked up Pale Fire digitally a couple months back. I believe that might have been in the more recent one of these book haul videos. I don't remember for sure off the top of my head. But Pale Fire is one that I think I'll have to re-pick up physically just because of the concept of it. But the stories of Vladimir Nabokov is one that I picked up, so various different short stories, and then of course Lolita, the other one that he is really known for, and probably the book that I'm more interested in over Pale Fire, maybe just because it's not quite so complexly structured, but both of them I do want to give a shot at one point or another. Next up is part 2, in which we talk about the collections. So these are, moving on from Vladimir Nabokov, we have Diabolidad, which I guess is a short story collection of Mikhail Bulgakov, author of Master and Margarita, which I enjoyed. I was like, you know what, for a short story collection, if I wanted to try reading more Bulgakov, that is a great way to do it. So when that was on sale, I picked it up. You also have the collected stories of Stefan Zweig, which I apologize for saying Zweig in the Short Story Sundays video of chess story that I did a few months back. That was before I was learning German and didn't really connect that the name would have been pronounced completely different than I was pronouncing it then. So that was my American dummy head doing that. But I decided to pick this up when it was on sale for similar reasons. There's also The Acts of King Arthur and His Noble Knights by John Steinbeck, which is one that I was interested in picking up, apparently, to cover for one reason or another on Short Story Sundays, for example, but with that series discontinued, whatever, I decided to pick this up when it was on sale for a few bucks cheaper, and I had Kindle credit. I decided, yeah, let's actually go ahead and pick that up while it's a little bit cheaper. It was still like $5 or something like that, even after Kindle credits and it being quote-unquote on sale. But given that even the standard Kindle version of this is like 13 or 14 bucks, I was like, yeah, that's bearable. I can do that. Related to John Steinbeck, of course, is over here Journal of a Novel, The East of Eden Letters. So I read East of Eden, man, it was like 9 months ago now at this point, which feels bad, man, to say. But I really loved that book, and apparently the East of Eden Letters provides a lot of insight to who he was and how he was, and some of the ideas and concepts that were kind of coming through his head into the book onto the page while he was writing East of Eden. So that is something that I feel like could be very enlightening for that experience. And then something that is, similarly nonfiction collection related is The Language of the Night by Ursula K. Le Guin, which is essays on writing science fiction and fantasy. So, just a collection of essays by Le Guin. I figured, why not, basically. Next up is part 3 of the ebook collection, the full series, so either in collections or otherwise. Let's first talk about over here a series of unfortunate events, which is a 13-book series. I didn't even realize it was that long, and is also a series that I was not interested in reading or had never really thought about even reading at any point. I was like, okay, that's a thing that it exists, but when this one omnibus collection, all 13 books, went on sale for like, was it 99 cents? Maybe it was 1.99, but for that kind of price, I was like, you know what? Maybe someday. For that kind of price, you just can't give up that sheer amount of content in there. Over the last 3 months, also, all 4 volumes of Journey to the West went on sale on Kindle for a few bucks, and considering that the Kindle versions of those are standard like $30, I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I don't know if I'm going to pick these up physically. They'd be cool to have physically because the spines match up if you get the right versions of them, the hardcover versions. The paperback don't line up quite as well. Either way, I decided to pick these up. They seem cool. I do want to read these, so when they all went on sale, it was nice to be able to put them in the collection. Over here is Neil Stephenson's, what even is it called? The Baroque Cycle collection. So that is Quicksilver, The Confusion, and the System of the World. Books by him that I didn't necessarily feel I was super inherently keen on reading, but decided to pick up the collection when it was pretty cheap for a 3-book collection. So pretty, similar thing as A Series of Unfortunate Events, but I'm definitely looking forward to reading Stephenson at some point in time. Next up is the Wayward Pines trilogy by Blake Crouch. So that is Pines, then Wayward, and then The Last Town. So ones that I've had my eye on kind of tangentially. So when all 3 of the books eventually went on sale at one point in time or another, I was like, yeah, that'd be worth giving a shot for sure. So I did that. I picked up the 2 books in Signal Airship, The Guns Above, and By Fire Above on recommendation from a friend, Orion. They seem pretty cool, pretty interesting. They seem like that Flintlock fantasy type of thing. I got a sample of like the first page of the first book, and like prose wise, it seems like it's something that's super up there. This author has only done these 2 books as far as I know. Both of them were on sale on the same day at one point, and I was like, perfect opportunity to just grab them because I can. Just prose wise alone, I want to read these books, because if it holds up through the entirety of them, it'd be a very beautiful reading experience. And then over here, of course, is Endymion by Dan Simmons. So the last 2 books in the Hyperion Cantos, a series that I picked up the first 2 books in, Hyperion and Fall of Hyperion, I believe in the last one of these hauls. So Endymion and Rise of Endymion are now part of the collection. These 2 I'm not particularly keen on trying, but hey, they were on sale, so I picked them up. Next up is just a few items continuing series that I've already started collecting. First, of course, being The Quantum Thief in the Jean Le Flambeur trilogy. Sorry if I mispronounced that. It's French. I'm terrible at French. We all know this. But this trilogy seems cool. I've already collected the 2nd and 3rd books on sale, so when the first one finally went on sale, I completed that collection. I got The Queen of Bedlam, the last book in the... what's it even called? It should be on here. I don't know why my mind is blanking so much. Matthew Corbett series, that's what it's called. It's not the last book in it, it's the 2nd book in the series, but it was the last book that I hadn't collected. I don't remember if this ever went on sale at some point. I might have just used a bunch of Kindle credits to pick it up, because it's like the $16 book in the series, most expensive one on Kindle for whatever reason, and also is the only one that doesn't frequently go on sale. In fact, I don't think it's gone on sale once since I started collecting the series several months ago, so that is unfortunate, but I decided to pick it up to at least complete the collection. I also picked up City of Last Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky, the first book in The Tyrant Philosophers, because the 2nd book I already had, so when this one went on sale, I grabbed it. The 3rd book is either already out or is out very soon, and I like these covers. I've heard good things. This is one of the ones one of Tchaikovsky's stories I'm more interested in checking out, so there is that. And then Against All Gods by Miles Cameron, another book one that I picked up because I already had book 3. Because I already had book 2. Book 3 is already out in this series now, and conceptually, this is another one that I think would definitely be up my alley, so I grabbed that. Next up is several books of series that I've started collecting, or for which I've collected an item or 2 at the beginning, just to kind of see, what's going on with it, see if I'm interested in giving it more of a shot or something along those lines. So we'll talk about all of these items in turn. First off is down here, being Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles collection, which has the first 3 books in the Vampire Chronicles series. So Interview with the Vampire Lestat, and The Queen of the Damned. I'm not entirely sure how interested I am in reading the series, but everybody definitely raves about these first few books in the series. I know plenty of people feel like they fall off, but I feel like the reviews for the first three books, at the very least, are pretty raving. So when this little collection of the first three of them went on sale, I was like, that is definitely a good starting spot to see if I enjoy them for myself. Pretty similar thing with the Parker novels, except apparently the Parker novels have been around for quite a while and I had never heard of them before. There was a day that like almost all of the books in the series were on sale for like $2 a piece. So I picked up just the first three of them because I figured if I was wanting to give the series a shot, then I might as well just start with, the first two or three, and then decide whether I'm curious to continue or if I feel like the stories are up my alley enough to continue reading a series like this. Could have picked up more, but decided to just kind of hold it in with just the first three. Next up is Shadow March, the first book in the Shadow March series by Tad Williams. Tad Williams stuff very infrequently goes on sale on Kindle, I'm realizing, unfortunately, but this first book in the series did at one point, so I definitely hopped on that sale for sure. Same thing with Black Sun Rising up here by C.S. Friedman. This is apparently one of the forefathers of what people consider the grimdark genre, but given how people talk about grimdark, it's pretty inconsistent. There's not really a whole lot of uh consistency with what is and isn't, and people have a lot of arguments about that. But Black Sun Rising was one that went on sale and that I got recommended by a couple different friends. I believe the friend that made that Things of Wano special edition right there, I believe he was one that said this was pretty good, so it was on sale. I was like, yeah, sure, if I'm curious, I'll try. And the cover is really cool, and cover buys are always the best buys, we'll say. 16 Ways to Defend a Walled City is kind of on a similar note. Apparently, KJ Parker is a pretty well-renowned author for one reason or another. I definitely heard his name before, but don't know where or why. So I picked this up when it was on sale. I don't know how curious I am to try a bunch of his stuff, but if I ever do read one of his books, this will probably be the one, and I'll decide what I want to do about continuing that series once I've read it. That'll basically be the determining factor there. Next is The Thousand Deaths of Arthur Ben, which is a trilogy by the author of, the Janitor series, which is a YA middle grade series. Didn't think that this author would write something that seems to be, like epic fantasy. I don't know if this falls in the YA territory, if this is just straight up adult fantasy, and that was the next thing he did. But it looks cool. The three covers are cool. The title's cool. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll pick this first one up. If the other two will go on sale, I may eventually pick those up, but even if they don't, I will definitely be keen on trying this first book and determining whether I want to read further into the series. Then next up are a couple of books that I picked up for free, just book ones to kind of give a shot, because a friend of mine has been sharing in a Discord server we're in, free Kindle books that he gets emails about every day, basically. And these at one point or another ended up on them. So Awakening, which is part of the Histories of Drakmor series, the first book in it by Robert M. Kearns, and then A Shield Maiden Under the Howling Moon. Awakening is a little bit more of the epic fantasy type of thing. It seems like it's got a couple different plot lines, one of them following the sort of amnesia trope, which can be done well. And then The Howling Moon is a little bit more of a historical fantasy based in Norse times. Both of them sounded cool enough, and because both of these were free, I just decided to grab book one of each of these, and if at some point they kind of seem like they'd scratch the itch for what I'm wanting at that point, I'm willing to give them a shot and then determine about continuing the series at that point. Next up is Heroes Die by Matthew Woodring Stover. I don't remember if this was on sale or if I picked this up with Kindle credits or not. It was probably on sale, but this one is the author of, what's it called? Revenge of the Sith, the third book in, or third movie in Star Wars. He did the novelization for that and is very well regarded for his Star Wars material, and a lot of people claim that people sleep very heavily on his fantasy stuff. So Heroes Die, despite having a pretty cover, all things considered, I figured I'd pick up just because if I wanted to try something like that, I can definitely see myself reading it. Next up is Wanderers by Chuck Wendig, which is apparently the first book in a duology, but I'm definitely more interested in trying the first book. Apparently, this is kind of something similar along the lines of Swan Song and The Stand. First by Robert McCammon, the other by Stephen King. So one of those very long, epic type of books that follows, a journey across the country type of thing going on. I don't know entirely sure the concept, but it did go on sale at one point a couple months ago. Just very briefly, I picked it up under, the pretenses that one of my friends really likes it. In fact, likes it a lot more than the other two books, but he's also a hater in general. So when he loves a book, and he apparently loved Wanderers, you kind of listen to that. So I decided to listen to it and picked this up as a result. The Judas Blossom by Stephen Arion also went on sale at one point, and I'm definitely curious about this one. It got a lot of good buzz at the time that it came out, and this book and the second book have a lot of get a lot of praise for the covers. They're definitely cool covers, so I'm definitely keen on trying this one out at some point. I'll determine if I'm going to continue with the series. I don't know if it's just a duology or if there's going to be more books in it. I'd have to look that up, but I will decide upon continuing it when I actually read it. Bookshops and Bone Dust is also the second book in, what's it called? The Legends and Lattes type of a cozy fantasy thing that he's got going on, Travis Baldree. I haven't picked up Legends and Lattes yet myself, but it is one that I hear a lot of good things about. I think it would definitely be a vibe. This one went on sale at one point, so I picked it up as a result. And then, something a little bit differently, I picked up The Story of Philosophy, which isn't necessarily a series, but is kind of like a precursor similar to The Story of Civilization by Will Durant. I picked this up, and then a couple months later, Volume 7 of Story of Civilization went on sale on Kindle. Getting these books physically seems to be like an impossible task, so I'm going to be picking these up one by one, the digital copies as they go on sale. So for this 3-month period, The Story of Civilization, The Age of Reason Begins, Volume 7 is the only one that's gone on sale at that point, so I've started to collect that series with this one here. Part 6 of the ebook collection portion of the video is non-fiction stuff, so random non-fiction books that I picked up at one point or another. The first one we're going to talk about is The Penguin Book of Hell, which apparently is like a collection of a bunch of different stories and the way different mythos depict and see hell. So I grabbed that because it seemed cool, and I don't remember if it was for free or not, but it was definitely really cheap. I was like, that seems like it'd be cool. Dory's illustrations for Ariosto's Orlando Furiosa also went on sale, so I think this would be a pretty cool companion to reading Orlando Furioso if I ever do that at some point in the future, which I do plan to do at some point in the future. I picked that up as a companion when it went on sale. I got A Writer's Guide to Story Structure and Beyond by Mary Frame when that was a free nonfiction book that said friend earlier posted in the Discord server. I was like, why not? It's a good resource. I might as well give that a shot. So I picked that up for free. Novelist as a Vocation by Haruki Murakami. I picked up when that went on sale. I'd be interested in hearing the thoughts of, a very popular author on writing, and especially given his experience with writing specifically. The Lumbee Indians, An American Struggle was a free nonfiction book that got posted in the Discord server at one point. I was like, that seems pretty cool, so I grabbed it. Same thing with Leadership in Turbulent Times, free book by Doris Kearns Goodwin. Picked that up. It's about, is it 4 specific presidents? It's about various different presidents, I think, basically, in the United States, but it might be about other world leaders. I forget off the top of my head, but the concept of it sounded good. It's lengthy enough to cover each leader in enough depth to be of my satisfaction, so I was like, yeah, I'll definitely pick that up. I'm interested in it. I also picked up American Prometheus, The Triumph and Tragedy of Robert Oppenheimer. Obviously, this is the book that inspired the movie Oppenheimer that Nolan did, so I'm interested in giving it a shot, and I've always been curious about Oppenheimer, so why not pick up the book? I also picked up the book about Peter the Great, His Life and World by Robert K. Massey when that went on sale. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, a specific new translation of this went on sale, so I grabbed that, and that's what I'm looking at reading when I get around to reading Meditations at some point. Black Hawk Down went on sale, A Story of Modern War. This is a story that I've definitely heard is like part of the pop culture for a good long while, so that's one that I want to give a shot. 18 Days of War is about the Yom Kippur War. I probably pronounced that poorly, but that is one that I'm keen on giving a shot. This one was another free nonfiction pickup, and relatedly, yet another free nonfiction pickup was The Jewish Camp Doctor by Dr. Isaac Kohensius. Both of those look pretty good, and this actually, jumps pretty smoothly into part 7 of this historical fiction pickups. The first one of these being The Auschwitz Protocol by Jack Carnegie. This is a historical fiction book that looks pretty good, and this one was also a free pickup, I think, at one point. If not, it was like 99 cents, so that was one that I was interested in giving a shot. In the first circle, similarly, somewhere right around or shortly after the time of World War II, Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote in the first circle. This is a novel as opposed to the Gulag Archipelago, which is autobiography, basically. So if I want to read something by Solzhenitsyn, which is more of the novel format, I do definitely want to give this a shot. And since it is the uncensored, full, complete version of it, that is pretty neat. All Quiet on the Western Front, I'm pretty sure is a very, very well-known story, one that I have heard a lot about but also don't know much about, so I picked that up when it was on sale. A Column of Fire, the third book, I believe, in Kingsbridge by Ken Follett, went on sale, so I picked that up because these are also very expensive ebooks, and I was like, yeah, if one of them goes on sale, I'm just going to grab it, so I did that here. And then a book that I bought based on the cover alone, Baudolino by Umberto Eco, is actually an author, frankly, that I haven't ever really had a direct interest in giving a shot. Like, a bunch of friends read The Name of the Rose relatively recently. A lot of them really loved it. I've heard a lot of great things about it. For whatever reason, I just don't find myself particularly interested in it, and I have no idea why, despite the praise. But this cover looked amazing, so I decided to grab that. Maybe this will be my entrance into Eco. I'm not entirely sure. Next up, we move into the more classics and literary fiction side of things, starting off with a few free pickups. First with The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim, which sounds pretty good, actually, just kind of the concept. I don't know why it reminded me of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, but it kind of did, even though I don't think they're similar in the slightest. Just for whatever reason, the type of vibe while reading seems like they might be relatively similar. Probably not, but that's just how I pictured it. The Stranger by Albert Camus went on sale for free at some point. I know there's a lot of people who really like The Stranger. Several of my friends really love it. A few of them really don't, but the ones that love it have me convinced that I think I should give it a shot. So I picked it up absolutely when it was free. Catch 22 went free at one point, so I was absolutely going to give that a shot too. One that I'm interested in, if for the satirical World War II takes alone. Anthem by Ayn Rand is a very short book, I came to realize. I didn't realize it was only around 100 pages, so when this went for sale for 99 cents, I was like, I'll absolutely pick that up. It'll probably be my first Ayn Rand before I read either The Fountainhead or Atlas Shrugged, so that was a good opportunity to pick that up. Roberto Bolaño, The Savage Detectives. Roberto Bolaño's The Savage Detectives also went on sale pretty recently. Aside from 2666, this is the one of his books that I really want to give a shot. Might even give this one a shot before that one. The concept seems pretty cool, so I grabbed that. Another book that I got for free was Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora and Hurston, which is apparently conceptually, or at least the story behind it, which seems conceptually pretty similar to the next book that I picked up, Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, both dealing with race during a time when racism and segregation and stuff in the United States was pretty prominent. So they seem like they'd be pretty good. Apparently Their Eyes Were Watching God is a pretty difficult book to read. I think I saw that in one or two places. Can't speak to whether that's true or not, but I've seen that said a few times. I also grabbed The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, a book that I know nothing about, but I've enjoyed the very little of Hemingway that I've read, so getting this for free just as a random, thing on Amazon. I'm pretty sure most of his books are probably in the public domain at this point, so it's not like it'd be that hard to get most of them for free, I think, but when, a version of it went on free or went for free and was posted in the Discord. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll grab that. And then True Grit, which isn't necessarily literary fiction or classics or anything like that. You could call it a Western classic, I think, maybe, by Charles Portis. It's just, there wasn't any other section where putting a Western book into this haul would make very much sense. So I decided to put it here because that's where it made the most sense. And that ends the literary fiction section here. Next up is the sci-fi fantasy portion of the list, starting off with mostly sci-fi stuff actually here. So we'll start here with 2001: A Space Odyssey by Arthur C. Clarke. Definitely a very iconic story, one that I'm interested in giving a shot. Followed up by Rendezvous with Rama by the same author, the book by him that I'm probably most interested in trying after Childhood's End, which is one that I picked up, I think, maybe 2 or 3 hauls ago, or something like that. I forget off the top of my head. I also picked up Kurt Vonnegut's Cat's Cradle. I believe I already own Slaughterhouse-5, and I think that one and Cat's Cradle are probably the best places to start with him, at least for me. So I grabbed this one when it went on sale for that reason. Peter Watts's Blind Sight is quite well known, and a lot of people have definitely recommended it in a lot of places. I believe on the Sci-Fi subreddit, this is like a meme for people to recommend regardless of what people ask for. It's like, oh, you want a very happy space opera story? Read Blind Sight, even though that's absolutely not what Blind Sight is. I think that's sort of the meme that's kind of gone on, but this is one that went on sale. I was like, yeah, I absolutely want to give that a shot based off of what I've heard. It sounds really good, even if maybe not so cheerful. So I grabbed that. The Mountain in the Sea by Ray Naylor over here seems like it would also be pretty good, so I grabbed that. Very good cover, so when it went on sale, I was like, yeah, I'll definitely pick that up. Recursion by Blake Crouch went on sale, picked that up. This one and Dark Matter are probably the two of his books that I'm most interested in trying, even more so than Wayward Pines, so that going on sale was pretty nice. Untethered Sky is a novella by Fonda Lee that I decided to pick up because when it's cheap and being a novella, I was like, yeah, this might be a good starting spot for her in general, rather than just straight up starting with Greenbone Saga. Dreamer Awake by Liam Hall, otherwise known on YouTube as Liam's Lyceum, released not too long ago, so I decided to pick that up. This is only like 100 pages. It kind of has that sword and sorcery with some sci-fi elements type of vibe, so if that's your thing, I would definitely recommend giving this a shot. He definitely knows his sword and sorcery. He knows his sci-fi. He knows all of this stuff very, very deeply. So I can imagine that something he wrote with in that sort of realm of literature would be pretty good. It also has Christopher Rocchio's stamp of approval. The House in the Cerulean Sea is one that I've seen a lot of but know nothing about by TJ Klune. Picked that up when it was on sale. Seems like it could be cool, but I genuinely don't know very much about it. Elder Race by Adrian Tchaikovsky is definitely not one of his more popular books, but it's decently short, and I think it sounds pretty cool, the vibe, so I'm interested in giving it a shot. And now finally The Master of White Storm, which is another one of these standalone books by Janny Wirtz. That went on sale, so I was like, yeah, I will definitely grab that. Next up are the horror and thriller books on the list. First off being Lair of the Eldritch Dark by Clark Ashton Smith, who was apparently a friend of what's his bucket, H.P. Lovecraft, and also a contemporary of Robert E. Howard as well, so sort of in that realm of fiction. This little binding here was free on Amazon because, you know, obviously all of this stuff is old enough to be in the public domain anyway, probably, so this collection being free was no surprise. But apparently it's like 1,000 pages long, so it has a lot of different stories by Clark Ashton Smith between fantasy and horror and stuff like that, so I was like, yeah, absolutely. And the cover looks absolutely amazing, so yeah, I was willing to give it a shot for that alone. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is another classic over here by Washington Irving, classic horror that I wanted to give a shot at one point, so when I saw that for very cheap, I grabbed it. Coraline by Neil Gaiman may or may not be, you know, the best to call horror, quote unquote, specifically, but I picked that up when it was on sale. It's one that I've neither watched nor read, so I know actually surprisingly little about it, but one that I'm interested in giving a shot. If nothing else, this cover definitely makes it seem like it's horror. Boys in the Valley by Philip Fracassi. I don't actually know for sure what this is genre-wise. I guess it's kind of thriller-esque, but I was under the impression that it was like a fantasy horror book at one point. But I might have been wrong in that impression. I know it belongs more in this horror side of things, so someone who's read it, definitely give me a little bit of clarification on it. I know nothing about it, just that a lot of people have said good things. Come With Me seems to be like a horror thriller type thing by Ronald Malfi. This is an author who I guess I'll kind of start collecting a few books from now and again when they go on sale. No idea when I'll give him a shot, but you know, he gets a lot of praise recently, so I'm going to read one of his books eventually. Gone Girl seems to be more of a thriller by Gillian Flynn. Know very little about it, despite it being both a book and a movie, and both of them being apparently very popular, but it went on sale, so I grabbed it. And then Night Film, a book by Marisha Pessel, is one that a friend shared when it went very cheap. I was like, you know, the concept of this sounds very cool, even though I'm not 100% sure if it'd be up my alley. So I picked it up just, you know, on a whim. One of those things that, like, if I read it, it's pretty lengthy, like 850 pages. If I read it and like it, I'll check out more by the author, but for now, that's going to be, you know, the one that I keep here. Next up is some contemporary fiction, just a few items left on the list here. First off, Immobility by Brian Evanson, which maybe could be considered a horror type of book because it's post-apocalyptic. The concept of this, you know, the sort of blurb on Amazon looked pretty cool, so when it was cheap, I was like, I'm willing to try that. That sounds like it could be good. Katsuo Ishiguro is an author that I've recently kind of come around on being willing to try pretty soon. Never Let Me Go went on sale. I'm going to pick up some of his other stuff when they go on sale as well. So this one's in here. The River We Remember by William Kent Kruger. William Kent Kruger seems to be a popular author. There's a couple of his other books whose concepts seem very good to me. So when this went on sale, I was like, yeah, I'll give that a shot. It seems to be one of his more recent releases as well. And then a book that I had absolutely no idea was by a Mormon author and had a Mormon main character, A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen Peck, is one that several friends have read. That is apparently quite good. It's just a short novella. I think it would be pretty good. The concept of it seemed interesting, so when it went on sale, I grabbed it. Like I said, I had absolutely no idea that this was anything related to Mormons, even though I am Mormon and several of my friends know this, so I'm surprised that they didn't let me know about this earlier. Finally, we're going to talk about the last part of the ebook section of this list with a few duplicates. I already had the Illuminaries on audio. I already had the Reality Dysfunction on audio. I already have Infinite Jest physically and have already read it, but I grabbed these three when they went on sale just for the sake of it. But that makes up the rest of the Kindle books. So now let's move into the audiobooks to basically round out the end of this video. There's not a whole lot of stuff here, thank goodness, because I'm dying after over an hour recording this video. First off, there's a couple items that I got for the Kindle 2-for-1 credit stuff. Let's see if I can find which collection these are in. First up was an item called The Wolf of the North Trilogy by Duncan M. Hamilton, one that I know nothing about, but it was in the 2-for-1 credits, so I decided to pick it up with the other item in the 2-for-1 credits that I thought would be worth getting, which of course was The History of the Ancient World right here by Susan Wise Bauer. Seemed like a good deal. I'm interested in history. I really like that kind of stuff. And so when this was in the 2-for-1 credits, I was like, yeah, sure, that's cool. And then furthermore, The History of the Medieval World by the same author. It was in the Audible Plus catalog, so I decided to add that to my library. We'll see if that stays in the Audible Plus catalog for me to listen to it at some point. Speaking of the Audible Plus catalog, let's talk about a couple other items that I decided to add to my library, whether I'm able to read them soon or not. Who can tell? These are Lady Joker volumes 1 and 2, little pair of novels, which I guess kind of make up one novel, all things considered, that a couple of my friends have read pretty recently and say is pretty good. So these were here, decided to put them in the library. We'll see if I get to them at some point. Similar to these in the Audible Plus catalog. Similar to these in the Audible Plus catalog was The Gulag Archipelago Volume 1, by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. So I actually own all 3 volumes of this, the unabridged version physically, but the first one was in the Audible Plus catalog, and the third one was on very cheap sale at one point, so I decided to put both of those in the library. We'll see when I'm able to get volume 2 in the collection there, but I did grab them for that. And if you remember, I also talked about an item earlier that I said we would talk a little bit more about. Peter the Great, His Life and World by Robert K. Massey. I also got an audiobook before I actually got the Kindle version of it, because this was pretty cheap on sale at one point on Audible, so I grabbed that. And then it was on sale later physically, or rather digitally, so I was like, yeah, sure, let's go ahead and do that. I also grabbed right here the Mega Cosmic Rift, the fourth book in Torth. So when that came out, I decided to pick that up with a little credit there. And then the Empress of Beasts, the Next Wandering in volume, I also added to my library when that came out pretty recently. But that makes up the entirety of this haul. I'm sorry it was so long. I don't want another one of these videos to go on this long again, so I'm going to avoid that in the future. That is definitely way too long of a video, but thank you for watching this. If you did, what of these books are favorites of yours? What of them do you think I would absolutely love? What of them do you think I should give a shot first? Definitely give any of those a shout in the comments below if you would. There's a couple hundred items, a couple hundred books here in the list, so there's a lot to pick from. But thank you again for watching. I'm tired now after this. Come back next week for that interview with Benjamin Lyer that I'm pretty excited for. Otherwise, Wheel of Time Diaries are continuing to come out over the next few Thursdays, so that is occupying most of my month at this point. Thank you once again for watching. I'll be back in the next video. I hope to see you there.